Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for emergency podcast breaking news. Remco Evenepoel to ride for Redbull BORA hansgrohe starting 2026. I would say starting in 2026. And wow, this has just dropped at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I pulled Benji off the bike. He was doing some sort of FTP test, I believe, to say we have to do an emergency podcast. And here we are. It's not a surprise. To me, it is a bit of a surprise. It drops today. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, Benji. But yeah, where were you? Where were you when Remco Red Bull was announced?
Mate, I was riding up a mountain as fast as possible on Zwift, and I'm completely cooked. So the perfect time to announce it. I don't know whether there's going to be smart things coming out of my mouth in this podcast, but I'll do my best because I am completely cooked. But it is something that we've been waiting for, to be honest. It's been simmering for the last few years. And in the last year, in the last month especially, it became clear that something was coming, Patrick. And it isn't really a surprise to me. Like you say, didn't expect it on specifically Tuesday, the 5th of August, but it's here. So how about we jump into the breaking news then? Remco Evenepoel is leaving Quick-Step and is joining Redbull BORA hansgrohe. Surprising?
No, not surprising. We all knew this had to happen with his expiring contract at the end of 2026. I'll do the Red Bull statement first in full. A new chapter begins for one of the most defining riders of his generation. Remco Evenepoel will wear the Red Bull BORA hansgrohe jersey from the upcoming season onward. The Belgian phenomenon has already carved his name into cycling history at a young age. World champion, Olympic gold medalist, Grand Tour winner, monument victor. Few riders have achieved such an impressive resume in just a few seasons. With his move to Red Bull, the 25-year-old sets his sights on the next phase of his career. Together with his new team, he aims to take on the sport's biggest challenges with the, read in between the lines, Tour de France there. Insert a quote from me. With the clear ambition to fight for victories in the most prestigious races and captivate fans around the world with attractive racing. And a quote from Ralph Denk, CEO of Red Bull. BORA hansgrohe, Remco stands for ambition. He doesn't just want to ride, he wants to shape cycling. He brings not only exceptional athletic talent, but also a remarkable mindset. His determination, professionalism, and relentless drive to succeed are truly inspiring. And yeah, that's that. No quotes from Remco. First reaction to the Red Bull release, Benji?
To be honest, it's short. I was expecting, when you sign a rider like Remco Evenepoel, I expect like huge breaking news stuff. And this is kind of just a, 200-word press release? I feel like I expected a little bit more, but then again, can we say that the news itself of Remco Evenepoel moving team to your team, that itself is kind of the breaking news, so it doesn't necessarily need the glamour around it?
Or I don't agree.
Okay.
I would have expected quotes from Remco here. Why is Remco moving?
Well... That is exactly what we're going to be speculating about today.
But why is, from his words, why is he moving? Why is he wanting to do this while still under contract? That's something I was just expecting to read in the press release. And is it a bit rushed? Did they just sign it? I don't know. It was coordinated between the two teams. They both released it embargoed at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Journalists had it embargoed to release their pieces at 5 o'clock. So it wasn't rushed to the point where teams weren't coordinating press releases amongst themselves.
Was it in F1 that there was this one guy that was moving team and then the other team said he wasn't moving team? Then we had this whole debacle around it. I feel like we've had something similar in cycling 1.5, 2 years ago with Kian Uitenbroeks maybe. But in this specific situation, I would assume that for Remco Evenepoel, who was on paper contracted until the end of 2026, for him to leave his contract early at the end of 2025 instead, to go to Red Bull BORA hansgrohe, I would assume there's a tri-party agreement necessary, which would be an agreement between all three parties, between Soudal Quick-Step, Remco Evenepoel, and Red Bull BORA hansgrohe. And I assume that from the fact that they are so coordinated in their release here, because did you go over the actual Soudal Quick-Step announcement press release?
No.
Because that one says Soudal Quick-Step can announce that Remco Evenepoel will leave the team at the end of the current season when he will join Redbull BORA hansgrohe team. Representatives of Remco informed the team's management that he did not wish to discuss an extension of his current agreement, which expires at the end of 2026. After taking some time to consult with our sponsors and partners, the team's ownership and management have decided that it is in the best interest of everyone to agree that Remco can move at the end of the current season, the current 2025 season. So I assume it's a tri-party agreement, fully signed, everybody agrees, and that's why he's moving.
We'll get into the latter half of that Soudal Quick-Step statement in a bit when we talk about the future of that team. When I saw this news drop at 5 o'clock today, I was even thinking it might have been in respect of the rest of this season, because you can have pro team to pro team transfers in the 2 weeks from 1st of August. So Remco could have transferred from Quick-Step to Redbull BORA hansgrohe in the current period, but it is in respect of the following year. So, and the reason I was thinking that, like, the situation was, and this is very common in the NFL right now, I'm sorry to do another sport analogy, but what's happening right now with Remco is par for the course with star athletes in the National Football League, in American football. So, for example, Micah Parsons, he's on an expiring contract. He's got 1 year left on the Cowboys. Okay. They haven't negotiated an extension. He said, trade me. I'm not going to play and risk injury when I'm going to potentially get paid $100 million. And he trade request, and they probably won't trade him. But with what Remco's doing is kind of similar to what happens in the NFL. And Remco is on an expiring year. He doesn't want to spend another year of his, maybe middle of his peak, 26-year-old season on the same team. And I think he feels, now we're speculating, but my speculation is Remco thinks he will get better support, whether that's staff, nutrition, equipment, teammates at Redbull BORA hansgrohe. The reality is they have a bigger budget. And on the other side, Soudal Quick-Step have him on an expiring contract. In their press release, they say, Remco's told us he's not going to sign an extension. So you either get the buyout now, and we'll speculate on what the buyout could be, but you get the buyout now for this year, or you just let him walk, and you might be happy with that because you can also get some more wins next year.
But how does that buyout work in the world of cycling at the moment? Because there's been some rumors in the sense of, let's say a rider like Remco here gets a buyout from Redbull BORA hansgrohe in this situation, I would assume, for the last spot of his contract, the last year of his contract. That means that Red Bull on paper, we're speculating here, but most likely pays Soudal Quick-Step a certain sum of money to cover the last year of that contract. Is that specified in the UCI rules, or how is that value defined of that last season, of that buyout?
It would be, it's just going to be a negotiation. I think Belgian law, it has to be the minimum of his annual salary remaining, but then you can still negotiate further if you drag your heels. So it's going to be his salary plus a little bit. And if I was Soudal Quick-Step, I would have sold Remco today.
Yeah.
Today.
Extra
because
money.
What races is he doing? He's not doing the Vuelta. He does World Champs in Belgian national kit. Great. Okay, cool. And then what? He's not going to win Lombardia against Pog.
Trofeo Bernocchi, my friend. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, so he's going to Tour of Luxembourg GC.
Yeah.
You save 40% of his annual salary this year. 40% of his annual salary you would save if you'd sold him now. And the buyout goes up 40%. Now, maybe Redbull BORA didn't want to do that, but I would have tried to do it like that, because you increase your buyout almost double in effective when you factor in the savings of his salary. That didn't happen, so he'll see out the rest of the year at Soudal Quick-Step. It's really hard to... Well, this goes back a few years, Benji. It goes back a few years to 2022 Ineos, and he was on a small contract. Then he won the Vuelta, or he just started winning everything because he signed a bad extension in 2020, 2021 probably.
Because his agent was his father, And let's be honest about it, we had some fights in the media then throughout those years between Patrick Lefevre and his father, Patrick Evenepoel, related to contract stuff, related to finances, related to the team needing to get better along the way. So there was upset within the team, and that led to the rumors as well. And rumors don't just come out of nowhere. Sometimes they do. But in this case, the fact that it happened every single year shows that there was fire where there was smoke. Ooh, I'm using the English expressions correctly. Oi, oi, oi. Anyway, on a serious note, Ineos was one of the rumors for multiple years. BORA was one of the rumors for multiple years. We had the whole drama over the offseason of Soudal Quick-Step perhaps merging with another cycling team. I think it was Visma Lease bike back in the day. Whether that would work with bike sponsors. And that's also a factor here, Patrick, because Remco, on paper, from my knowledge, has a personal deal with Specialized, his bike sponsor. But therefore, he kind of restricts himself with the amount of teams he can sign for, right? Because let's say Ineos, for example, let's say they don't ride on a Specialized. That is a very difficult situation to solve, because either Ineos would have to be okay with Remco riding on a different bicycle, or Remco would have to find a way to remove his own personal equipment deal.
Exactly. It's or he goes to Total Energies. So they know they're back on Envy now. But yeah, or he could go to FDJ. That's what. So Vollering, FDJ Suez said, we'll take Vollering and she'll bring Special and we'll just change bike brands. And they just changed to Specialized for Vollering. So unless one of the potential teams has a boatload of cash and they can change to Specialized, maybe Specialized doesn't want to be in an extra team, they don't want to have 3 World Tour teams, I don't know, then he limits his options. Now, fortunately, one of those Specialized teams is one of the richest teams in the peloton, but yeah, it limits, because if we analyze the fit, Ineos would have been a really, really good fit. Maybe a better fit depending on your view of things, but that personal deal is does limit it a little bit. That's why, like Van der Poel, could he just, I don't know what his deal is. I feel like Van der Poel, his contract is still with the team. No, did he sign a lifetime contract with Canyon?
I don't know that. I don't know that. I generally don't know, but one thing is certain, Remco's equipment contract is not a lifetime deal, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so that plays into it a big amount. He can't just go to the highest bidder on the World Tour, and so his options were limited. Fortunately for him, apparently, according to Lefevre, Ralph Denk has been courting Remco for a number of years, so they've wanted Remco on the team for a long time, and now they have him on the team.
Redbull BORA hansgrohe had already made different transfers as well, because we've spoken about Primoz Roglic joining the Redbull BORA hansgrohe team. What is it? Just 1.5 years ago? Changing their team, coming from Jumbo-Visma. Yes, there was drama in the Vuelta 2023. Eventually, he left the team towards Redbull BORA hansgrohe and became the potential candidate, because Red Bull, they've had loads of success in the past. They have loads of success in the past with the likes of Peter Sagan, of course, but winning Grand Tours, there's been a few coming around. Char Hindley was a winner of a Giro. Obviously, Roglic then ended up winning a Vuelta. But when it comes to the Tour de France, that was the missing piece. And podiuming a Tour de France, winning a Tour de France. Buchmann got close to a podium, if I recall, in
fourth in 2019.
So that was something, but he was never necessarily a guy that was going to win the Tour de France. So they were looking for someone. They signed Primoz Roglic as a candidate, a rider that was on the market throughout that, well, not necessarily on the market, but was possible to snatch. I would classify it as from Jumbo-Visma that year, and he's now been on the team for a year and a half, and he's won that Vuelta, but he doesn't look like he's a rider that will be winning the Tour de France either for Red Bull BORA hansgrohe. So then the logical next step is finding another rider that can potentially do so. We've had Florian Lipovic actually podium the Tour de France since that moment, but Remco Evenepoel is on paper a good candidate to potentially in the future come close to winning the Tour de France, but right now it's about podiuming as well. But we have to discuss all of that in a second, Patrick. Can I tell you something, Patrick? I just looked at my phone and I absolutely smashed that climb earlier. Smashed it. And you know why, Patrick? Join Cycling Training Plan.
Exactly. If you think you don't have time, here's the truth. most cyclists, even the pro cyclists, don't have a perfect schedule. There's a race on the horizon, or they don't have the hours to spare. That's exactly who Join is for. It's for everybody. Join Cycling, it's not just for pros, although if you're pro level like Benji, or chasing podiums, then it's also for you too. It can flex up or down, and it's for those of you who want to get more out of the time of the day that you do have without overthinking it, without having to think. You tell Join how much time you've got. It builds a training plan that actually fits your life. If you miss a ride, need to move one, easy, no problem. Join adjusts without judgment, without guilt. And it keeps things simple with no jargon, no complicated data, which I know we're trying to pass through the weeds of contracts and buyouts and everything. It's not like that. It's easy, clear. You can follow the rides that help you stay consistent, get fitter, and enjoy every moment on the bike. So whether you're training for something or for nothing at all, just want to get fitter on the bike and be healthier, Join helps you ride with purpose. You can get started using the link in the show notes below. You get a 30-day free trial, no credit card required. Just download the app on your smart device and get going. It has a workout player as well to sync up with your indoor training if you want to do that, although in Northern Hemisphere the weather's pretty good right now. So thanks to Join Cycling as always for being our show partner and supporting the show. So Remco's legacy at Quick-Step, it's been tumultuous. It's been famous. It's been like tumultuous, controversial at times, always in the headlines for good or worse, but ultimately it's been very, very successful. I mean, he has won 64 races at Quick-Step. He has won Tour de France stages, Olympic Games, World Championships, time trial and road race, multiple Grand Tour stages, a Grand Tour, and just a whole host of monuments with Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and twice, right? He won Liège twice? Yeah, he won Liège twice. He began the long solos. He began them. Pogacar learned from him. And you can't describe it as any way but successful, having 64 pro victories at 25 years old, the majority of which are at a very, very high level.
It doesn't come along often, I think, Patrick, that we see a rider come through the ranks of club teams, junior teams, whatever, absolutely destroy the competition, then go to Quick-Step and end up defining that whole team, basically, for multiple years. Sure, they've got Tim Merlier, they've got multiple other talents in the last 6 years as well, but Remco Evenepoel became the focus of Soudal Quick-Step, to the point that the team started transitioning from what they were before, which in the early 2010s, before that even, Soudal Quick-Step, Quick-Step Energetic, whatever it was called in the multiple years that it existed, that was a team that was a cobble team with usually 2 sprinters on board. That was the focus. We had that with Viviani, with Gaviria, with Cavendish, with Tom Bonen, with Stijn de Volder, I'm pretty sure, in multiple years. Like, there were always options on the table for cobbles and sprints. And when Remco Evenepoel came along, we have to respect Rigoberto Urán, Patrick, in the early 2010s. But when Remco Evenepoel came along, this team transitioned, partially because they were worse at the cobble races, but also, on top of that, because they had their own amazing rider, top-level rider that could do GCs and could potentially be Belgium's next Grand Tour winner. And he ended up being that, winning La Vuelta in the Giro after his big injury. His crash at Lombardia didn't exactly go too well there, but they rushed him towards that race, to be honest. And maybe this year they rushed him towards a few races as well. But on another setting, he also podiumed to Tour de France, which this team had never done before as well. So he brought this team forward. This team brought him forward. But then we come to the question you already pointed at earlier, Patrick. What is then the reason that Remco Evenepoel was so eager to me, it looked like he was very eager to leave this team based on everything that happened in the last 2.5 years. Then that to me comes down to, over the years, unhappiness about how fast the team grew around him. As in, throughout the years, there were some years where domestiques for mountains, etc., weren't necessarily coming on board. And with Mikel Landa and so forth, that changed. And the team tried to develop around him. Let's be honest about it, Patrick. This year, Landa being injured before the Tour, for Vaak as well, gave him a Tour de France team that was actually worse than last year. Simply said. But I also just think, my opinion is that I think Remco Evenepoel thinks that he might have peaked at Soudal Quick-Step when it comes to his level last year at the Tour de France. and he thinks that he needs to go to a different location, a different team, a different environment, a team with more budget to improve his performance from here.
Yeah, like when you just look at the two rosters, the Quick-Step team does not have nearly the climbing depth of of Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe. On the other hand, if Landa was there in the Tour de France this year and he was injured, I didn't see 4 climbing domestiques around Florian Lipovitz every stage either. I mean,
well, they brought a sprint team.
Yeah, they brought a sprint team, and I'm sure that will change with Remco going in there. Like Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe knew, okay, best case we come third. Let's also play for a stage, nearly work with Meus. But still, yeah, they just got more investment. I mean, you look at the staff, they signed Bigham and Whale. They weren't the only ones. What they've done there with also the nutrition, they've done that in all departments, Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe, and they're changing a lot of the staff. DS is coming out, Aldark and Gasparotto out. We assume Lodewijk is in, Sven van Torenhout's in. I think doing like at the sportive director level is how I read that. And it's shinier, it's got a bigger budget, and Remco thinks he's going to perform better there. But on the other hand, he did win the Vuelta. He did have 64 victories. He has won monuments, World Championships, Olympics at Quick-Step with and third in the Tour de France last year with the highest level, with the level that would have won the Tour de France if Poggi and Jonas weren't there on a crazy level. And this year he had the crash and then sickness, and he had a broken rib, and he was sitting third before he had to abandon. So yeah, I think that he wants to be with at Pogacar's level.
Yeah, he wants to become one of the top 2 GC riders in this world. He wants to try and see whether he can top 2 the Tour de France in the future, top 1 the Tour de France. He wants to win the Tour de France in his career, obviously. So he's trying to find the limits in what he can improve, and he believes that Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe can be a step forward in that. But the question now is, can it be? Because I have to be honest, based on last year and this year, they've made significant investments, Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe, with the coming of Red Bull, BORA coming on board. But if we then take a look at the results that they came this year, Lipovitz, fantastic podium at the Tour de France. That's great. How much of that can we put on the team? I think partially that's on the performance of the team, etc. But if I then look at the rest of the season, they bought a ton of riders. They brought a ton of riders together for a potential couple squad, whether it's the likes of Lascano coming along. We had, next to that, obviously they had Jordi Meus already. Piffy coming along, like, you mentioned numerous names there, but Van Gils also for the Hill Classics. All those names came together in the Cobble Classics, but in certain races, they selected the wrong leader, in my opinion. In other races, they were in certain positions in the race with multiple riders, and those riders were not riding for each other. And there needs to be chemistry within a team you build as well. You can't just put 7 talented riders together and expect them to work together perfectly. So that is my one worry, that this year, I have not seen a fantastic Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe either. So I don't think Red Bull is doing it perfectly in 2025. But my difference with Soudal Quick-Step is, when I look at Soudal Quick-Step, also their rumored and confirmed transfers, then I see budget limits. When I look at Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe, buying out Roglic 2 years ago, Remco's potentially on the market, buying out Remco Evenepoel, they've got potentially money to bring this team even forward in the next 2 years. And I see this in the future becoming a team that can bring Remco to a higher level. But I'm not sure it will be in 2026.
I'll say it again. I think who would you rather have helping you in the mountains next year in the Tour, Benji, on Red Bull's roster instead of Landa?
Good question, because at the end of the day, if I'm Florian Lipovitz, and I'm like, okay, I just podiumed the Tour de France, I won't be eager to ride for Remco Evenepoel at the Tour de France.
Why should he?
Like, there's no reason for him to desire that. He will want his own calendar. He will arguably also deserves Tour de France leadership, even with Remco coming in. They both have proven that they can podium the Tour de France, but...
And one did it more recently than the other.
That is true. On the other hand, Remco's far better at one-day races, etc., than Lipovic, though. So that is like a differential. But when it comes to Grand Tours,
yeah, I'm just talking. But this is really about the Tour de France,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, I think in Liège and races like that, I mean, Remco's had decent enough support. Even Van Wilder and Amstel Gold Race did a mega pull for 10, 15 minutes after Pogacar attacked in Amstel Gold Race. But to me, this is really about the Grand Tours, maybe also the TT with Bigham over there. I don't know, but and yeah, like definitely the all-round rouleurs and climbing rouleurs at Red Bull are in theory way better, although they're also signing Catania because he's good at Quick-Step. They do miss at Soudal Quick-Step that like Campenarts or Tim Wellens type guy. And I think, Red Bull, that could be Sobrero or somebody. But I think we have to be honest, reality is Red Bull are performing under their budget this year, Benji.
Yep.
Livovic's podium aside, Giro, disaster. Tour de France, no stage win. Classics, disaster. Like Lazcano, Van Gils, Pithy haven't performed to their pre-joining level. And Roglic is kind of checked out. So it's just better names, bigger money. That doesn't mean it's just going to automatically click and be a fantastic smooth sailing ride for Remco slotting in. Like you said, you got to make all these names work together. But if we construct Remco's team here, like
for Tour de France,
for the Tour de France. I mean, for the Ardennes and the Hill Classics and Bretagne Classic and the Italian Classics in Canada, Red Bull are stacked. They are stacked, and I also think it's much easier to be complementary with these attacking options because Remco's an attacking option. Van Gils can sit in, yada, yada, yada. I think for the Hill Classics, they are, really, really good team.
Yeah.
But, for the Tour de France, so you got Remco. Do you split Lipovic with him and let Lipovic lead the Giro?
Like, is Lipovic going to be super happy about leading the Giro and co-leader at the Vuelta while Remco does, let's say, Tour de France leadership and Vuelta leadership? Because Lipovic just bought him the Tour de France, so maybe he should also have a say on whether he could potentially lead the Tour de France for this team. Like, I just feel like there's going to be some people management issues in this team. And not just there, Roglic is also still part of this team. Now, this year he hasn't necessarily shown himself to potentially be a podium candidate at the Tour de France here. He was actually relatively close for most of the Tour de France. He then threw it away on the final two mountain stages. But I would say that Lipovic is now on higher hierarchy than Roglic within this team, especially because he's a 24-year-old German rider. It's just, I'm sorry, but what do we then say about Giulio Pellizzari, who got sixth at the Giro, rode for Roglic a few times, and doing so, losing time in the first 2 weeks, that he could have potentially been fourth or fifth in that Giro. Like, he will also want some leadership here and there. And does this transfer and then put Pellizzari into a position where he will have to super domestique in a Grand Tour, which he'd be good at that for Remco or for Lipovic. But is that what he desires after proving himself this year?
I mean, if I'm Pellizzari, I want to co-lead the Giro next year and go to the third and win the podium the race. And to be honest, it's pretty realistic depending on the parkour and the start list. So I do see also these riders signed, Benji, not when Remco was on the team. Like if you sign to UAE for next year, you know the drill. You know the drill. If you sign to Visma, you know the drill. Like, they got the two big GC leaders and you got to accept that. And unless you're better than them. But at Red Bull BORA, Pellizzari got signed out of Lavernier and he helped Roglic. Okay, Neopro. I mean, Hindley, again, I mean, he extended, so it's a bit different. But Van Gils, again, like, didn't he sign them to be their Ardennes leader? So I do see some, especially with Lipovic, Roglic, I just don't see how it's tenable, honestly. Yeah. Unless he does Giro again. I mean, Roglic, it wouldn't surprise me if he retired or did a 1 year at Astana or Bahrain.
Because I swear I saw a tweet somewhere the other day. I don't know who posted it or what media brought it out, but that Movistar had interest in Roglic, but that Roglic said he would like to stay for another year at Red Bull or something. I don't know if it was actually like confirmed media, but that's an example of like, okay, if Roglic actually wants to stay, then I also don't know what role he will play. Does he want to? Does he? HLN confirmed that apparently, according to Luke. So that's that. But when it comes to Roglic, does he want to be that guy that is the super domestique after his fantastic career as a GC rider in his final year to try and teach stuff and try and help these younger GC riders compete for the best possible prices? Would be pretty cool to see that. I don't know whether Primoz Roglic wants to do that, you know?
I mean, at San Sebastian, Roglic was a good teammate. He's happy to do it. He's on a holiday after the Tour de France, whatever. That's completely different to doing it in a Grand Tour and going in knowing that. And so probably Hindley, they can get to be a domestique in the Tour de France. Danny Martinez, where's he been? Yeah. They probably know their role. Vlasov knows their role. I see with Roglic, Lipovic, and Pellizzari a bit more difficult, and it wouldn't surprise me if you're Bora, Benji, don't you want the Roglic salary off the books?
Yes, but maybe Roglic doesn't want his Bora salary off his books.
Yeah, but surely...
if you're Primoz Roglic and you're on a salary of a couple million and you can have that for another year while riding for a pretty high-level team, I don't know, maybe he's okay with that for another year. You also have to see it from his perspective, not just the team, eh?
Yeah, but from his perspective, I think he'd go get the bag at Movistar.
I don't know. Apparently not, based on HLN's...
If I'm Roglic with Enrique out, I would do Giro, Vuelta, and Movistar. That would be sick.
Mid-season transfer, ride the Vuelta after doing the Giro and the Tour.
Exactly. I mean, Roglic, yeah, exactly. So I think some stuff needs to get ironed out, but in theory, the team to me would look like, Remco, Hindley, Pithy, Van Gils, Van Dijk, Tratnik, Catania.
Which Van Dijk, by the way?
Tim. And maybe another climber. Yeah, Lipovic or something. So,
to me, when it comes to this whole transfer, Patrick, we've got Remco Evenepoel coming in, but around Remco Evenepoel, there's also the rumors that other people will follow. You said Cataneo, Klaas Lodewijk, Diaz at Soudal Quick-Step would also follow based on the HLN rumors I heard in the last couple of weeks. And then Sven van Toornout coming in as that performance management guy above that, sportive manager. I don't know what the exact role is called, but when I see changes like that within a team, does it not feel like, okay, we're starting a project around this rider versus this rider comes to a team where he can move up because the performance is already there? It feels like they're starting not from zero, but they're resetting a little bit with letting people go, etc. So that also means that the destination is not ready to bring Remco to the next level based on that they have to adapt their team around there. And if you then bring Lodewijk, then if you move to another team for a new environment, then you bring your old environment, or you're not just moving to a new environment impacted by your old environment?
Yeah, and that was why Roglic maybe in theory performed so well at the Vuelta last year. Because he literally just brought his coach and just literally did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And the only difference was equipment. And also Lipovic was a great domestique. So, and that wasn't a smooth sailing Vuelta either. So you're right, Benji. It's like if you don't change things, what will change? On the other hand, at Red Bull, there are a lot of changes. And, like their director of coaching and sports science, who's been there for quite a long time, Dan Lorang, he always does these cryptic tweets.
Yes.
And there's been a few recently.
Mate.
And they're not like, you can't read too much into them. You can't point them at any specific person or something, but I'll just read out a few of them. In June 4th, in sport, money doesn't just buy talent, it comes with expectations and obligations. This should never be forgotten by anyone involved, athletes, teams, managers, or sponsors. Fair enough. But the most recent one, August 3, 2 days ago, quotation marks, restructuring a company, then protect the people who create the magic behind your success.
Can I be honest? Sure, Lipovic was a success, but the rest of the season wasn't. So
I think this is about, he's talking about staff though.
I agree. I agree that he's talking about staff, but if we talk about protect the people who create the magic behind the success, then I'm looking at the 2025 Redbull BORA hansgrohe season, and I'm not seeing much success outside of Lipovic at the Tour.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but maybe
I don't
he's
think
saying
the tweet hits as hard.
I think maybe he's saying all the new staff coming in and the new like management and ideas is stopping what made them a good team that came up in the first place. He could have just seen the quote on LinkedIn and liked it as well. Not to read into it too much. But, you know, like...
I feel like usually when he tweets something, you can link it with something that is going on at that same time. It is no coincidence to me that that tweet comes out.
Two people got fired in the week that happened.
And from the rumors that I heard, some people might be following. So if that's the case, then there are big changes within the team. Then there is restructuring within the company of Redbull BORA hansgrohe, and then the link is made to this tweet. But maybe we're overreading into a tweet of Daniel Orang, but I would expect that there to be a link there somewhere. But I don't know. I think both for conclusions, Patrick, is that we look at this transfer, we see a team, Soudal Quick-Step, where it wasn't going well, or it was going relatively well results-wise, palmarès-wise, but it felt like a bit of a stagnation was there, and I didn't really see how Remco within that team could come closer to winning the Tour de France. That is also dependent on how much Remco can get better from last year. It doesn't necessarily only have to be the team around him. It's also whether the performance staff and himself can make him improve, etc. Whether he needs to apply different training standard, different nutrition, different methods of working within the team itself. That maybe that is what I assume that he's looking for in a different team, together with maybe support in the mountain, stuff like that. But then I look at Redbull BORA hansgrohe, and I think both of us are coming to the realization that Red Bull is not there at the moment, but with their budget, they could be.
And that's why I think ultimately Remco had to do it. I think he had to do it. You can't lose another year of your prime. Looking at the recent Tour de France, Quick-Step were good, don't get me wrong. They won 4 stages with 3 different riders. But the reality is when you look at the tenor of the race, their team was not a participant in the UAE versus Visma battle. Like, they're just not there. And without crazy amount of money injected, that wasn't going to change in 2026 either. And I just saw no way that he could win the Tour de France on Quick-Step except without the top 2 guys crashing out. And even if that happened, he could still have a collapse like he had in this year's Tour de France. Is there a guarantee he wins the Tour at Red Bull? No. But do they have more money? Yes. Do they have more talented climbers? Yes. They have won Grand Tours, 2 in the last 4 seasons, with 2 different riders. So they do have more resources. And then if you're Red Bull, Benji, you also have to do it, because with Roglic, it's not going to happen. And it's the most talented rider available that you just can't pass it up. You can't pass up onto sign. Every team would sign Remco. Literally every team would sign him.
Luke also posts in our chat that HLN reports that Daniel Orang would become his trainer, and Tony Galopin, who is, if I recall, currently DS at Lotto, would become DS at the team as well, which, I'll be honest, I don't have enough insight on how good Tony Galopin is as a DS, so it's hard to judge. I'd have to specifically look at races where he was DS, etc., which I don't remember that vividly. But I don't know. That does show to me that there's so many changes within this team that it's hard to believe that it will go swimmingly from the get-go. It will be a project.
Yes. So we'll see how it goes. It certainly concentrates even further the resources of the top talent into specific teams. Visma, UAE, Red Bull. The climbing talent just keeps getting concentrated into these teams. Yeah. Is that good for the sport? Probably not, but that's how it is. And otherwise, for Quick-Step, Benji, they do get the buyout. it's clearly not. It's not an amicable split. It's no way as amicable. You read all the press from 4A, like they feel like they had no choice and they got backed into a corner. I think they wanted maybe to do another year and then see if he wanted to extend, but it just wasn't going to happen. So,
mate, did you see the tweet from Patrick Lefebvre?
Patrick Lefebvre said, don't call me.
Yeah, don't call me, please. I'm gone from this business. I'm not involved in the transfers. Stop calling me. I can imagine he's getting loads of phone calls by like Belgian journalists right now, so I can feel him, to be honest. But I think, like you say, I think we need to dive into the topic of Soudal Quick-Step now, because Remco Evenepoel is leaving this team. Where does that leave Soudal Quick-Step? And by coincidence, I had actually made our notes for the next weekly show that we were supposed to record tomorrow. So I'm not sure how this podcast is going to influence that. But on the documents there's some transfers that have been announced when it comes to Soudal Quick-Step that we might as well mention. Jasper Stuyven and Edward Plankard will be joining Soudal Quick-Step on a 3-year contract. And Jonathan Vervenne is moving up from the dev team to the World Tour team. Now with Remco out of the team, they've still got on paper Mikel Landa within the team as a potential GC candidate, rider, etc. So they've got something there. But obviously, it's not Remco Evenepoel. They can still top 5 a Grand Tour with Landa, in my opinion. But there does seem to be a shift back to their origins, is what I describe it. And have we spoken about the latter part of the Soudal Quick-Step press release, which might hint something there, or?
Yeah, exactly. So they say, to begin the quote, since its inception in 2003, our team has seen many iterations and changes while continuing to develop into one of the most successful teams in the history of pro cycling. We recently became the first pro cycling team to reach 1,000 UCI wins. While we regret Remco's decision to leave, we will foster the memories that we have made and will continue to strive together to achieve some significant results for the rest of the season. I'd send it. Get ready to learn Chinese. I mean...
Guangxi, buddy. Send Remco to Guangxi. Punishment.
It's not punishment. It's a UCI World Tour race. He can win it.
Well, yeah. For a lot of riders, it is punishment.
Not for Oscar Only. Last year in Lennart van Eegel, and Oscar Only won the Tour de France this year. To continue the quote, we strongly believe in the team spirit that earned us the title of the Wolf Pack, and we will continue to strive to be a collective that is stronger than any one individual. We would like to place on record our thanks to our sponsors and partners that have supported us throughout this process and will continue to do so in the future. So Quick-Step couldn't do this. You have to speak to Soudal and Quick-Step first and say, listen, what do you want us to do? We can just keep him here for another year, or maybe they really try to force an exit and it gets super ugly, or we take the money and we rebuild this team. And they've done the latter. I think it's the right thing. It's probably the only choice realistically they had. Yeah. Where they put that money into, they're going to try to rebuild the classics and the sprints. It's what they were always good at. They got Paul Magnier, who's a really, really exciting young rider. Tim Early is the best sprinter in the world. And they can still win stages from breakaways. They did it with VPP on Ventoux, for example. But then for the big races, the big classics, the big Grand Tours, GC, it's going to be a massive step back.
I'm sorry, but yes, Tim Merlier is the best sprinter in the world, and next to Milan, definitely a top 2 sprinter. I would say best, to be honest, based on the last year. But outside of that, the classics have changed, Patrick. If we look at 7 to 10 years ago, whatever, the era where Quick-Step was dominant in the classics and was winning left and right, the classics were ridden differently. They didn't have much of Van der Poel, etc. in those races, and Quick-Step won those races through numerical advantage on the opposing teams. So multiple couple leaders that would keep on attacking left and right, try to put tactical situations on the table where their numerical advantage, them having multiple leaders, would benefit them over the other competition. Even Philippe Gilbert winning Roubaix was because they had multiple riders to play with within that race, trying to outplay the likes of maybe Sagan, I don't necessarily remember, with Lampard, but so many of their victories came from numerical advantage. Obviously, back in the day, they had Tom Bonen, the Volder, who was also low-key playing with 2 leaders, but Tom Bonen was also one of the 2 best classics riders within that era, together with the likes of Cancellara. So that's slightly different. We've entered the era where if Mathieu van der Poel wants to go in a classic, in the likes of RVV, if Pogacar goes in RVV, good luck using Quick-Step's numerical advantage to try and beat Pogacar and Mathieu van der Poel, who will do the last 50 kilometers 5 minutes faster than you.
The only classic this year that I can remember 2 classics being raced in the traditional sense was Omloop because of a massive headwind where you can play a bit of numbers. Kuhn could have won that fashion, and it wasn't just the superheroes in that group. It was just solid classics riders who were there in the final, and then it came back for a sprint, which Magnier incidentally came second in. And then Kuurne, but Kuurne is Kuurne. And even in Kuurne, Visma trying to open it at 80 Ks to go. Dwars door of Vlaanderen and Visma opened at 1,000,000 Ks to go, and then obviously fumbled it, but they opened at 1,000,000 Ks to go. Gent-Wevelgem, Pedersen went with 2 hours to go. E3, they went with 80 Ks to go, 60 Ks to go on the Tyenberg. There's no, how do you play in the pre-final or final with numbers anymore when the race gets open with 2 hours to go and you have to be a top 5 classics rider to even make the split? Having 2 of those riders, the only team that had 2 of those riders was actually Trek, with Sturven, who they have signed. So, but still, I don't know how that's going to win you classics, but they did need to, they had to improve their classics because it was really bad this year. But still, I don't know if these Plancard I really like for different reasons. He's a support rider for Magnier. He is a perfect pairing with Paul Magnier. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be right back there in the classics either.
I don't think so either. Like, I agree. Paul Magnier with Edward Plancard, also Plancard in other races, can be a valuable domestique and a valuable rider for those races. And also maybe for Belgian 1.1 races, he can compete perhaps at his highest level. But I see him mostly as the domestique kind of rider. Paul Magnier, the question is, can he step up in different ways? And right now I see Magnier as a rider that can do well in the 1.1 Cobble Classics. And maybe his next step can be surviving an Omloop and trying to win the sprint at the end of that race, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't see him making that step to, I think he's been compared to a Tom Bonen a few times by staff and so forth, and I don't necessarily see that yet. And I see him more as a rider that if he can improve his sprint, etc., then maybe on a hard Gent-Wevelgem or Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, he can compete for the victory. But he won't be that pure classics rider at the moment. He needs to change for that to happen. And when I look at the incoming transfer then, like you said, Jasper Stuyven, I do think Jasper Stuyven can bring consistency in the classics of top 10 here, top 10 here, top 10 here, maybe top 5 there. Yes. Not being watched as a team within the classics. Can Jasper Stuyven deliver respectable results where you're not top 30 every single time, but where you're in the top 10 on a consistent basis, maybe a top 5 in Roubaix, those type of results Jasper Stuyven can bring. But I don't see any numerical advantage here, even if that still worked in the era of 2025, 2026, to apply that on classics. And especially if Mathieu van der Poel and Pogacar are present, then it doesn't matter if you have Jasper Stuyven or I'm sorry, but to be honest, even Visma Leasebike has come upon this stone within the classics in the last 1.5, 2 years. Where in the actual monuments, they also step against the Mathieu van der Poel and Pogacars of the world. And their
tactics don't work.
Their numerical advantage tactics of the past don't work against those riders anymore, because the difference is, it's quite significant with Pogacar and RVV, especially in Roubaix. In Roubaix, I still believe that Wout van Aert can win Roubaix. I will die on that stone, but that is my personal belief. It's just, like, people talk about the aliens in pro cycling. I don't really like that term, but at the end of the day, those 2 riders are significantly better at the classics, to the point that good luck finding tactics to beat those riders. And the tactics to be in the final then is try and get a rider in the early breakaway, try and anticipate. But if the race opens up earlier and earlier, like 80 kilometers to go, 90 kilometers to go, then good luck anticipating before that. And yes, I do believe in the last couple of years that we have had moments, Patrick, when we looked at Grand Tours, right? At monuments, where in the anticipation zone, where Alpecin was maybe suffering a little bit in controlling stuff.
Yeah, and even this year, to be frank, Alpecin were not as good in Roubaix. They weren't.
Fair.
Trek took over. I think Trek were the strongest all-round classics team this year. I don't know. I think it's hard to argue that in terms of depth.
Yes,
To me,
but
when the key moments in the big races, they had 4 guys there in Roubaix. They were there with Pedersen,
without
Tymberg, and
Kra.
Kra, I wouldn't trust him the same way I would trust Sturven to be in position. But yeah, without Søren Kra Andersen in San Remo, where he is a beast. It's like Kra Andersen's record in San Remo is untouchable. Well,
or like in the hill zone before the race normally opens up at second out of Quaremont and RVV, I expect Kra Andersen to be relevant there, you know?
So Quick-Step, I think, I wonder who they're signing. I mean, I would like to see, what if you put together like Plancart, Magnier, Stefan Kung, Sturven? It's a decent classics team, I think.
Yes, you're going to have consistent results throughout the classic season.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, you won't go back to the era of Soudal Quick-Step or Quick-Step Energetic winning classics left and right.
I think you could win them, though.
I don't believe in that.
I think you can win Omloop and Kona with that team.
I agree that winning, like, Søren Weidenskjold won Omloop.
Yeah,
like, that's no offense to Søren.
Him with that team.
But that shows that a Manier could win Omloop. Like, stuff like that. A Manier could win Kuhn if the race goes right. A Kuhn could win a classic here or there if the race goes right. But in the monuments, I see no competitiveness with that.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I think, if I was them, I probably wouldn't. They spend a lot. Probably Sturven's not cheap. Sturven, when you look at his results this year in the classics, he's not going to come cheap despite being in his 30s. They seem to be going back to Belgians, so a lot more. I mean, the announcements are... Yeah.
Sorry.
Woo. Their only announced riders so far are 3 Belgians. But probably just don't spend any money. If I was Quick-Step. Any more money?
I don't think they have any money.
Well, they just got paid a buyout.
Yeah, they got paid a buyout, but I don't expect that to be 5 million.
And then the spot with Remco Evenepoel out of the team, isn't this why the sponsors, aren't the sponsors then like, hey, we're not putting more money into this team?
Do you think sponsors might say, we're going to put less money in this team?
Well, yeah, how much less marketable did it just get?
Quite a bit, eh?
So
quite a lot.
Quite a lot. So that's the problem. And for the Hill Classics, they take a big step back. Not that anyone watches Liège, Bastogne-Liège or Flèche, but they don't. They don't. Seriously, like
if you were a Belgian man, you would be so separatist. I can
Pidcock
see
winning
it already.
The Lula Tour is legit bigger than those races. Like nobody cares. Everyone cares about the Tour de France, so they just set up a big train for. They got finally. Can we give Tim Merlier a proper lead-out train? That's all I want. That's all I ask for.
True, but is there an opening? If you think about, we've heard these rumors. We haven't spoken about this on the podcast at all. I was putting it in the notes for the weekly show tomorrow as well. We'll talk about it properly there. But as a small hint, there's been stirrings in the media, especially HLN once again, reporting about a potential merger between Lotto and Intermarché. What if that leads to a Jarno Widar or Jarno de Ligt coming on the market within the next 2 years? Is that an option for Soudal Quick-Step to strengthen himself with a potential GC rider in Widar? Potentially? Like, I'm looking in those ways now, but also, are there other teams dying at the end of the year? Like, sadly, but Total?
Arkea.
Stef Kras is a signing that was rumored for this team, by the way.
Stef Kras ain't winning, Tour de France, I don't think.
Mate, 11th, 12th in GC, he can do it.
Yeah, so I think Quick-Step will survive. They're a long-running team with a strong support base in Belgium. I think they're going to go back to their roots pre-Remco. The ultimate goal was to win the Tour de France with Remco on the team, become a Belgian Tour de France winner. It would have been a dream, but to be honest, when Lefebvre retired, it just never was going to happen. And it just and with Pogačar and Vingegaard, it just wasn't going to happen. Remco, unfortunately, if Remco was on that team and born 5 years earlier, he wins 2 Tours de France, but
At what team, sorry?
If he was just born 5 years earlier on Quick-Step, he would have won the 2018-2019 Tour de France.
Let's be honest about it. The level in those Tour de France's was not necessarily anywhere close to these days.
If you're in a transition period between two eras, and that was the transition between Froome to Slovenian era, then there are a couple of weaker tours there. And then after that...
Sorry, Patrick. The transition between Vincenzo Nibali and the Slovenian era. Come on.
Yeah, or you're like, Nibali, you can scam a tour or something. But like people crashing around you. Which is also, don't crash. As I always say, don't crash. Bad. Where do you got to give your hot take. Is Remco going to win the Tour de France and they never say how many years he's on the contract for. I'm going to assume 3 or 4, but how's this work for Remco? Is it going to be a success, Benji? Is it going to be strained? When does the pressure come in? When does the we're not happy with how this is going come in? What's the bar for success here?
It's interesting because, like, we're talking about pressure, but where do you have more pressure? You have more pressure being one of the two frontmen at Soudal Quick-Step, where Remco Evenepoel was kind of the focus of this team for the last 2 years? Or do you have more pressure within Redbull, BORA, hansgrohe, where if you don't succeed, Lipovic can take care of it?
That's not how this works, Benji.
I don't think so either, because the pressure is Lipovic being there.
Yeah, that's not how this works.
Because you're fighting for the spot of leader within that team as Remco Evenepoel. So
but you see the comments of all the Germans, like the German fans, a lot of the fans of BORA are like, what the fuck? Where's this leave Lipovic on Instagram? But how do you say if third in the tour and the same results, it's not a success, right? Because he did that already on Quick-Step.
I think it's realistic for Remco Evenepoel to top to a Tour de France. I think that's realistic. Pogacar and Vingegaard are better GC riders, and it's clear. But at the level of 2024, that was last year,
24
Remco Evenepoel, that level, then he can fight for a P2 if something's a bit off with one of the other two guys. And I'll be honest, like, if we look at the past of the sport of cycling, stuff can happen when it comes to a GC rider here or there, a crash there, stuff like that. Or a rider not having the best preparation regardless of crashes, etc. Maybe having an off year. Stuff like that can happen. So I see it realistic for Remco Evenepoel to top to the Tour de France. I'm not sure this move is going to bring him closer to that within the next year. But I think this team as a project can bring him to a higher level than he was at Quick-Step in the future.
I'm not sure that's true.
Really? You think 2024 will be an Remco peak forever?
2022 to 2024 Remco was pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. I mean, he's the second best rider in the world behind Pog those years. He beat him in a world championships. He won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Like, he won a shitload of races. Like, it's hard to get better than that. The only way you get better than that is if you straight up start beating Pog head-to-head in Liège, Lombardy every year and the Tour.
Well, that is the next step, no?
Yeah.
That is what he's looking for.
That is, yeah. But
he's trying to look for...
That's hard.
I know. It's pretty hard to beat Tadej Pogacar. And not just Tadej Pogacar, he also needs to beat Jonas Vingegaard in Grand Tours for that to happen. And maybe the Tour then isn't the way to go about that. Maybe the Vuelta against a Vingegaard that's already done a Grand Tour before that.
He already won the Vuelta.
Yeah, I know, but at least it can be against Vingegaard. And then instead, I don't fucking know.
I'm just saying, like, his results at Quick-Step 22 to 24 are pretty good.
Yes,
they're pretty
I agree.
Good. The only thing that really wasn't good was his 1 week performance. His palmarès in 1 week stage races for GC is below where it should be for someone who is 7th year professional at his level. He should have won. I mean, he hasn't won a World Tour 1 week race since
2022, 2021?
Since the UAE Tour in 2023. He hasn't won one in Europe since Poland in 2020.
Like,
with his TT,
Remco Evenepoel should be able to go to the Tour de Romandie, whatever, to a Tirreno Adriatico without a Pogacar and a Vingegaard and win that race.
Yeah.
So that is something we need to see. 100%.
And I think at Bora, he'll have better support there because at Quick-Step, they would split him and Landa in those 1 weeks. And they'd be like, all right, Remco does Paris-Nice, Landa does Catalunya to split our resources. At Bora, they can go to Tirreno with 2 good climbers to actually help Remco take time in the TT Skytrain. Remco's a very straightforward GC rider. TT, take time. No one can take time on you.
Yeah.
Punchy finishes. He's actually really good at those. He should be taking bonus seconds. Skytrain for uphill, for mountain finishes. Just do a defensive Skytrain. That's it.
Yes, I agree with that, but
you need
why did we not see
climbers
that?
for that. Well,
why did we not see that in the first week of the Tour de France? The punchiness. Because on one end, I think it's a strategic choice to not necessarily use their strengths as a Remco Evenepoel in that week. But I also believe there's a secondary thing there where he didn't have the punch at the end of those races anymore.
Yeah. Maybe he was having to position himself the whole time. And he was having to spend more energy than Vingegaard or Pogacar. I don't know, but you need the horses to do a Skytrain. Bora have, in theory, the horses for that. So,
but the reality is, Remco Evenepoel might have podiumed the Tour de France in 2024, but there's other people stepping up as well. Like Lipovic is a candidate within his team itself, but if we just look only as one name, I'm not sure he's going to step on to the podium fight directly.
If you had to give me a choice between Only or Lipovic right now, I'd take Only. I'd
point at Del Toro at the moment.
Nah, he just deliberately crashed Ciccone to stop him beating him again in Laguna.
I did not see that. I was probably on the bike.
They're both not injured, so it's okay. But he went through a corner in Burgos, trying to chase Adria, struck his pedal, crashed, slipped out. His hands on the ground, then take out Ciccone's bike. Ciccone crashes. Del Toro gets back up straight away. Only loses 11 seconds. Ciccone loses a minute 20. So Del Toro just did a masterful performance for GC.
At what point in the race was this?
The last 200 meters of the bend, they're sprinting for the win.
No 3-kilometer rule.
No, it's uphill sprint.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta watch it. It's they're not injured, so it's funny now. Well, for Ciccone, I don't think he'll be laughing, but
I don't think he'll be finding it funny. Then again, he wants Sebastian, so.
Well, I was gonna say about Del Toro. Oh no, you take Only.
I don't know.
He's on picnic post and L, Benji.
I know he's on picnic post and L, but Isaac Del Toro, I expect to grow from this point. I don't expect him to stagnate from this year. Do you expect Del Toro to just stay at this level forever?
I feel like by making him do so many races, like seeing the ball go in the back of the net, worthwhile endeavor. 100%, like winning a race is good. I think it's now at a point where he's doing so many races against guys who literally are 100 watts weaker than him. It is not teaching him how to race against people of equivalent strength. And we saw that in San Sebastian on the weekend, where he didn't know really what to do when he's with Ciccone, who then followed him.
And if you keep winning easily in those smaller races, you don't have to think about energy management. You can play a bit, etc. And then you get destroyed on the final climb on a proper race because you didn't energy manage the climb before.
Yeah.
Because I think Luke posted it on Twitter that before that climb, we mentioned it on the podcast of San Sebastian, that before the Murgil Tontora, Del Toro did about 68% of the work or something, or 62, whatever, it doesn't matter. More work than a rider, more work than Ciccone, while Ciccone should be doing most of the work because Del Toro had a teammate behind. So that is the example of what you're pointing out, Patrick.
Yeah. So I don't know where I got onto this. Maybe I'm just overrating Only now. But I think
kidding. Only is proper talent.
Of course, Del Toro is better than Only, but Only Lipovic, I mean, how do you account for team strength? How do you account for that?
How do you account for Juan Ayuso in the next couple of years? What is he going to do? Emergency podcast in a month and a half that he's leaving UAE?
In a day for Movistar.
Mate, if they announce it while I'm on an FTP test again, then holy shit, I'm going to lose it.
I think Remco should have gone to Ineos. I'm going to keep saying it till I think it's a better situation.
I don't know.
That's where the SkyTrain comes from. Literally.
That's where the SkyTrain comes from, but I wouldn't look at Ineos in the last 2 years and say it inspires confidence either.
Yeah, because they got no one that's as good as Remco. Because the signings were not good.
Yeah, they have improved
Aaron's
their tactics
level
this year.
was really good.
I don't know. Geraint Thomas becoming part of the management, does that inspire you?
No, that concerns me greatly.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. Because the problem with these sort of things is like, and you've seen it in their signings, it's like, oh, who do I know that lives in Monaco who was good in a classic in 2018-19?
Yeah.
And that explains one of their signings this year. And but yeah, it's interesting times. Hopefully Olney just stays. I think I would like to see Olney stay at Picnic, them get more sponsor money, invest around him. That would be really cool. Because like we said at the top, this is just another concentration of the climbing absolute stars into the small number of teams, and this makes it even harder for the mid-level teams to compete unless you get a crazy global sponsor or a shipping magnate like Movistar did or like Decathlon and Lidl did.
But we spoke about Ineos. Do we know what the reason is that Ineos was not in the discussion anymore?
It has to be the bike brand.
On one end, but Total Energy then joins Ineos. Are they bringing the bike brand from their Total Energy team?
They're not on Special anymore.
Did they move? I didn't know that.
No,
yeah, you're right.
The Special left.
You're right.
But yeah, that could have been that could have been possible. Surely it could have been possible to have changed the bike brand. And
yeah, they were on Envy.
Yeah.
Luke just confirmed.
You could have done so Enric's out of the Vuelta. You could have then done a sell C-Rod back to Movistar again and get Remco in. And then you have Kwiatkowski, De Plus, Aronsman, Tarling, Ganna. It would have been sick.
Where would you rather see Ayuso, Movistar or Ineos?
Yeah, Movistar. Just because of the Spanish connection, but either or, yeah. Just the distribution of climbing talent around the various teams would be better. I'd like to see Ayuso at Little Trek. Like,
I don't know. I'm not necessarily feeling that. For me, it's Movistar or Ineos. That's the vibe I see.
Big emergency podcast. I think we've covered all the topics there are to cover. Let us know what you think about the Remco Evenepoel, the end of the long-running saga. The saga that's been running for years and years and years has finally come to its conclusion. Let us know what you think, what the prospects are.
One last thing, Patrick. We need to predict, full-on random prediction. What is going to be the Grand Tour result, the best Grand Tour result of both Remco and Lipovic next year? Choose a Grand Tour and a result. I'm thinking
Lipovic will do the Giro, come fourth.
Okay.
And
I think Lipovic podiums the Giro.
Possible. Yeah, he could. And then Remco. Yeah, I actually am not that bullish, to be frank with you. But I'll say third in the Tour.
Who do we expect to do the Tour next year for a team like UAE before we finish it off?
That's, like, will Almeida do the same schedule again? Because he just extended?
Yeah.
Almeida Trek would have been nice.
Is Del Toro going to do the Tour again? For the first time, I mean? Not again.
Then does Almeida lead the Giro? Del Toro does the Tour? I'm inclined to believe Del Toro would not defend his GC position as well as Almeida whilst being a domestique. I think he'd lose more time. I don't know, to be honest.
I think Jonas is going to do the Giro next year. That is also my expectation. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Depends on the route. I mean, it also just depends on these routes. I mean, if the Giro doesn't have any steep mountaintop finishes and 10 gravel stages, then I think Vingegaard probably would be better off doing the Vuelta. If it's 3 times Zoncolan mountaintop finishes, then, you know, it's a different conversation. But where do you think Remco finishes in the Tour?
Well, when this year started, I made a video on my YouTube channel where I did predictions for this year, and one of the predictions, by the way, just want to point that out, was that Remco Evenepoel would move to Redbull BORA hansgrohe at the end of the 2025 season. Let's be honest, both of us had that feeling when the season started, so it wasn't an out there prediction. The other one was that I actually didn't see Remco Evenepoel podiuming the Tour de France. If I used my brain, then I said, as someone who knows Remco personally, I hope he does though. Now, for next year, I've got that same feeling. I've got the same feeling of, okay, my gut feeling says that Remco won't podium the Tour de France next year. But obviously, as someone who knows him personally, I'd like to see it. Same vibe. So the top 5 is what I currently envision.
Yeah. Like, do you know who came 5th in the Tour this year?
Mate. Oh God.
Exactly.
Gal.
I think so. Him or Johannesson?
Yes. Johannesson was 6th.
Okay.
Volkenen was 7th. Roglic was 8th. Healy was 9th. And Jagal was 10th.
Yep.
Boom, baby. That's how you finish it off.
He finished 2 weeks ago. So there you go. Thanks for listening as always. Let us know what you think about the Remco transfer. It's weird because we all knew it was coming. We just didn't know when, and we'll wait. I would like to see some more quotes from Remco. I think what's kind of missing, because just to explain a bit more about the transfer would be nice to hear, and he's always very articulate. So I'd be keen to hear his thoughts. But
I don't think he'll accept the Remco Evenepoel RCP interview in the next week.
If he wants to,
I'll give him a call. I'll try.
If he wants to do an exclusive transfer announcement, we nearly got him. We nearly got him when we had him up at altitude in the interrogation room, and we put the hard word on him. We're just funny YouTubers. But where are you riding next year, buddy? He's like, excuse me. The real hard-hitting question. Yeah, if he wants to do an exclusive, of course, but I think he's got bigger things to do, most likely. All right, thanks for listening as always. See you with a weekly, probably in a couple of days. Ciao, ciao.